Welcome inside the vault. It is, what day is it? Tuesday, January 21st. And you know what? You've got solo Sarah today because Bobby Trossett, we've all seen the amount of work he has put in over the last couple of days. He traveled up to Buffalo, was out in that cold weather, was touring Niagara Falls in the middle of January with just absolutely freezing weather. And we saw him get stuck on that bus ride home, didn't get home till late. And Bobby woke up this morning with a massive fever. He is definitely sick this morning. So my apologies for being late, but I couldn't move around some important things I had this morning to make up for gathering content and getting everything ready. So thank you for being patient with me and Bobby. Please put out your best thoughts and wishes to Bobby as he tries to recover. He wants to be back at things. We know that there's a press conference with Eric DaCosta and John Harbaugh tomorrow. That's at 11 a.m. So again, we may not have a noon start tomorrow. We're going to turn things around as quickly as we can. Usually those press conferences last 45 to 60 minutes. We'll try to turn it around as quickly as possible and get a start time as close to noon. Might be closer to 12:30, 12:45 tomorrow, but hopefully Bobby will be feeling better by then. Our strategy, what I tell you, he was trying to get out of bed to try to help me, and I told him not to. He did anyway. He tried to do a couple things to get things ready, but the strategy today is for him to sleep, get a lot of liquids, obviously, do what he needs to do, and hopefully he can feel probably won't be 100% by tomorrow, but hopefully get closer to it. So sending a lot of love out to Bobby. But the show goes on. The show goes on. Solo Sarah here. You know, I've got on the red today. You guys know I live in Columbus. Big day in Columbus as Ohio State University won the national championship last night. It's so funny. I was leaving Atlanta Monday morning as everybody else from Columbus was going into Atlanta for that game last night. They are indeed the college football national champions. And it's about 10 degrees outside. It was about 3 this morning. So school got canceled for kids today. It's another reason why I couldn't move things around and get ready for the show. So all my kids are celebrating not only the national championship, but also because they didn't have to go to school with with the very, very cold temperatures. So yes, I do have on the OSU red this morning, but lots of Ravens content to get to this morning. First off, we covered it yesterday. Dan Orlovsky had a tweet that were calling people losers if they were blaming Lamar Jackson for the loss yesterday. I would agree that it wasn't all on Lamar Jackson, but Stephen A. Smith went off on Dan Orlovsky for calling people losers if that was their take, if they put a bit of blame or a bit more of blame on Lamar Jackson. So he tries to clarify there. And then we go to another extreme where Mike Greenberg said that Lamar Jackson was the best player on the field, and they had a debate about that. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I'm going to give my take on, despite those 2 massive turnovers, was Lamar Jackson still the best player on the field in that Bills Ravens game? After that, we've got the compensatory picks. They are in. At least the projections are in. They're not official yet, but Nick Cordy, who always puts out the predictions, and he pretty much is always correct. I mean, at least like 98, 99% of predictions on there are accurate. So we're going to dive into what the Ravens have. I'm also going to dig a little bit deep into the Ravens unrestricted free agents, the guys that are about to hit the market in March. I'm going to go through, I believe there's 17 plus 3 more that are kind of in the restricted category. So I'm going to give some predictions of what I think is going to happen there. Get through some more of the locker room clean out yesterday, and then some quick hits. So when I tell you there's still a lot to go, we got a lot to go. I will try to keep up on comments as much as possible. I will certainly look at any super chats that come through. That obviously makes it easier because they're highlighted here for us. But let's begin. You may have seen it after the game. Lamar Jackson obviously had that heartbreaking moment where the 2-point conversion is dropped by Mark Andrews in the end zone. And despite what Chris Sims says, yes, the pass was right on the money. And no, he didn't make it the hardest pass possible for Mark Andrews. I was always taught If the football hits you in the numbers, hits you in both hands, that's a good pass. But nonetheless, Dan Orlovsky after the game says, if you put the loss on Lamar tonight, he says respectfully, whatever comes after respectfully, it's never going to be good. He says, respectfully, you're a loser. Then Dan Orlovsky says Mark Andrews is one of the all-time Ravens, which is true. He had a brutal drop and fumble, yes. And then he says, if you're going to use that to trash him, respectfully, you're a loser. So Stephen A. Smith on First Take today did not like that take from Dan Orlovsky, called him out on it. And Dan apologizes. Here it is on First Take this morning.
Need to stop. The fact of the matter is, America, the fan base, football analysts, reporters, and everybody else have a right to look at the game and call the balls and strikes, figuratively speaking, and call it like we see it. Mark Andrews is a great player. He's one of the most reliable tight ends in the history of the National Football League. You see those two mistakes he made?
Of course.
It's so devastating. The media can't find him. He hasn't spoken to anybody. He's not known for that. He's not known for avoiding the media. He's not known for avoiding accountability or anything like that. We know he's not being disrespectful.
I mean, Stephen A. makes a good point there. Lamar Jackson showed up at the press conference immediately after. He was out there. He was frustrated. He was as real and as raw as you can get. And then he took blame. He took it. He said, I threw a BS interception. He said, I should have fallen down instead of fumbled the ball. He covered for his guy in Mark Andrews. Lamar showed up. Then you see Mark Andrews, he's not showing up, and Stephen A. is making a point. Why isn't he showing up? Because he knows what we all witnessed. Okay? So continuing on of why you can't say if somebody points that out that they're a loser.
He's devastated. You know why? Because he knows what the rest of us saw. Somebody pointing that out and saying that lost you the game, it might be accurate in a lot of people's eyes and not as accurate in some others' lives. It doesn't make them a loser. You're watching the game. You have a right. Now, if you start talking about him personally, you start talking about his character, start talking about his family, I got you. Somebody said, damn it, he lost the game. That's not that far-fetched. Now, the 2 turnovers earlier didn't help. Lamar Jackson interception. Lamar Jackson getting stripped and having Von Miller return it. And ultimately that leading to a touchdown. Sure, that played a role. But moments count. Like I was saying to Shea and Cam Newton yesterday. Moments count. And when you blow it in a moment like that, you blew it. And somebody pointing that out doesn't make them a loser. That's all I want to say.
All right, so I can appreciate your words. I probably shouldn't have said loser there in that tweet. I was in the moment in the game, so I apologize for that. I shouldn't do that and call people that. My reference to Mark wasn't about yes, we're very critical. Obviously that drop. I was watching people just attack him, the person, Stephen A., and drag him, the person, and trash him, the person. That's why I said that about Mark. Of course, we have eyeballs, right? Those plays matter. Here was the reason why in that moment, because I knew this was going to happen in the game. You just knew whatever quarterback lost, people were just going to, and I've done this when I was younger in the business, Stephen A. as well. So we could go on the next day and be critical of the person and not celebrate the failure. I have done that years ago, and I didn't want to be a part of that, and I don't want the media to be a part of that. And so I agree with you in your comments. That's 100% on me in the way that I kind of phrased that. I apologize to people for kind of using that word loser. That's not okay.
All right, so fair enough from Dan Orlovsky. And he says, if you put the loss on Lamar tonight, respectfully, you're a loser. Listen, I do not put all the game on Lamar Jackson. Do I put a part of it? Absolutely. And so does Lamar himself. But if you put it all on him, I disagree with it. But for sure, you're not a loser if you feel like, it's like you're the leader, you're the one who's paid, you can't have those big turnovers. Okay. And then, so if you want to do that, I think it was, Booger who said that, we have to be able to criticize Lamar. And that's true. You have to be able to do that because through that criticism, and his self-critique, That's how you learn and grow and you get better for the next opportunity. Okay. Now, what he's trying to say here with Mark is if you're going to use it to trash him, respectfully, you're a loser. Now, I agree with Dan that you don't want to trash him as a human being. You don't want to trash him as a person. But then Dan proceeds to do what he's trying to prevent. And then he trashes people by calling them a loser. So good on him for apologizing for that. So it is there. And I hear what Stephen A is saying here. Like, you should be able to say, Mark Andrews, I love you. You've been a Raven for life. You came in with Lamar. You've had Lamar's back for all these years. Lamar loves you. We love you. You're an upstanding dude. Sorry about the car accident that you were in. Good on you for overcoming your injury from that hip drop tackle, like all of that. And you can say all that and simultaneously say you blew it. Because it's true. He blew it. The game-tying catch was in his hands. He blew it. He's a good dude. And he blew it. Lamar Jackson, he's our guy. He's our quarterback. He overcame the original hole that he helped create for the Ravens. But he created a hole. And you got to be able to point that out. You have to. So Dan Orlovsky comes back and he tries to explain more what he was trying to say without calling people losers, which is this idea that he's pushing back against, which I respect, when he talks about people that celebrate people's failures.
It's hard to be a little bit overly critical in that moment of Lamar, if I'm just being real, and it's our job. It's our job. But having talked with him, you know how much he wants it. Like, you know how much winning a Super Bowl matters to him, both for his career, both for the legacy, the way we talk about him. So when you see him make those mistakes in the playoffs again, it rips at you to be like, God bless Lamar. Like, I wish you didn't have that fumble, because then we are having a different conversation. I wish that two-pointer got caught, because then it puts it on Josh Allen, and we can praise Josh Allen rather than knocking those guys. So it was really important for me to make sure, let's not just go crush them and celebrate the failure more than having the critical conversation, which is our job.
Yeah. And I said this yesterday, where because people become so extreme, like Tanya, I just saw that you pointed out while that clip was going that some people were saying take away his insulin. And that is why you get somebody saying something extreme like that. That's why you get somebody like Dan Orlovsky saying something extreme the other way. Not as extreme as take away his insulin, but you're calling people a loser for saying he blew it. You know, you're not a loser if you point out what happened. It did. I came back from Atlanta, saw my husband for the first time last night since the game, and he loves Mark Andrews. He came in, he's like, Mark Andrews lost him that game. And you say that because it was the last play of the game. You can't make up for it after that. Lamar's mistakes, it makes a difference of when the mistake happens. It does. It makes a difference because you have a chance to overcome your mistakes later on. And so, I don't know that you get a bigger fan of Mark Andrews than my husband, maybe his own family, right? And he came in, he's like, Mark Andrews lost the Ravens that game. It was the last offensive play that happened. And then on the drive before, it's the fumble. So you got to be able to say you blew it. But you also got to be able to look at somebody and say, that's a trash take when you say, who cares about his car accident, or take away his insulin, or get personal like that. The only problem is that Dan got a little bit, he went to name calling also, and therefore he did the right thing and apologized there. Now, on Get Up this morning, Mike Greenberg went to another extreme, and I'm very curious about, because this is obviously a very pro Lamar Jackson audience that we got going on here, since the Vault covers the Ravens. The Vault covers everything Ravens and everything Lamar Jackson. He's the superstar of the team, perhaps the superstar of the league, one of the superstars for sure. So I'm very curious. Are you guys on board with what Greeny's about to say? Or do you feel like he may be going too far in Lamar's favor? Here's his take.
Not yet gotten a chance to tell you why we have not yet said the most important thing that needs to be said about Lamar Jackson in this context before we go any farther. There were 106 players who dressed for the game on Sunday night. Which one played the best? I would answer Lamar Jackson did. And if you were the best player on the field, I would answer Lamar Jackson was the best player on the field Sunday night. And if you were the best player on the field, I have a very hard time blaming you for losing the game. I'm sorry to say this because I'm sure his heart is broken, but Mark Andrews cost that team the game as much as you've ever seen a player. I know we want to put everything on the quarterback, but the fumble across the middle of the field when all of you football players never stop telling me, get north and south, get north and south, and he's running east and west and he gets the ball punched out of there. That was a momentum killer. Baltimore was about to absolutely take control of the game. And then on the two-point conversion at the end, did you want Lamar to walk over and hand it to him? You can't have thrown it any better than he did. So I have a very hard time saying this ball, I mean, Mark Andrews catches 100 out of 100 times. So I'm sorry to say it. Not. That's my point. What I'm saying is this is the same argument I made in defense of Josh Allen last year during the regular season when people would talk about the turnovers. And I would say, but he produces so much that it overcomes the things he did that were imperfect. I'm not saying he was perfect Sunday night, but I'm saying to act like he's the reason they lost, in my opinion, is greatly overstating.
Okay. So this is Mike Greenberg. Oh, and by the way, before I dig deeper into this, I saw while I was listening to that, I saw Jamie say that she had sent me an email for content from The Athletic that goes on what the topic of Dan Orlovsky. And Mike Silver, a senior NFL writer for The Athletic, said, just because the sport can be cruel doesn't mean the people who watch it have to be. Let me say it again. Just because the sport can be cruel doesn't mean the people who watch it have to be. I think that's a great, thank you for sending that email to me. And I think that's exactly it, which is why I've said twice in the last 2 days that my perspective of sports and watching it, I love sports. All the time, I'm like, life is just so much better with sports. I love competition. Competition can be what you want it to be. It can be toxic or it can be inspiring. And I think that's why some people just hate conflict, hate the competition, because competition can lead to conflict and it can be toxic. But if channeled correctly, competition to me inspires growth and it inspires stretching yourself and becoming better. And it can be inspiring. I love going against people that are better than me. I like surrounding people who are better than me because I don't get jealous. I get inspired. I'm convinced when I was an intern at the Ravens, my first year at the Ravens, when I walked in there, I thought we were competing to be there for a summer internship and then for the long-term internship. And it turns out that they had already decided who were going to be the long season interns. And I had already been pre-selected as just a summer intern. And the two guys that they had selected, I knew immediately why they were selected. They had so much more experience than me. So instead of pretending that I was on their level, I picked one guy out, and he still works for the Ravens today. He's been there for about 20 years now. NPR, he's Patrick Gleason, and the other one is one of the lead reporters for the Lakers. Okay? He's been with them. He, knows Shaq. He knew Kobe really well, all that. These guys were excellent. And I was just starting in the business. And so instead of being jealous and acting like I was on their level, I just straight up said, I can learn from you guys. What a great opportunity. So I'm going to soak up these couple of months and I'm going to learn as much as I can from you two guys. And I competed in a way that to me would help me grow. Then before I knew it, I got lucky. About the day before my internship ended, they said one of the other women that was on the staff full time was getting pregnant. They could keep one more intern. And they chose me. And it turned into 13 years working for the Ravens. I love that about competition. And so if you look at football in a healthy way, and you allow football, you watch these football games, and you only allow it to bring you joy, rather than bring you sadness or feel like the sport is cruel. I hated seeing Mark Andrews drop that ball. I hated it. But I wasn't hurt, so I don't have to go out and hurt Mark Andrews. because I don't let sports hurt me. And believe you me, some people will say, well, I'll just say this. It hurts me and Bobby in terms of this show. How many people did we see on the day that the Ravens lost? How many said, I can't do it. Here's my last super chat. Love you and Bobby, but I got to get out. It hurts me and Bobby as business partners when the Ravens lose. So it actually hurts, but it doesn't hurt me personally or emotionally because I won't let it. So if you're hurt by the football game, you're hurt by Mark Andrews, then that's a you problem. I hate that he dropped it. I hate it. I'm telling you, before he dropped it, every video we put up between 15 and 20,000 views. Now it's down to what? 5,000-6,000 views. It hurts our show, but it doesn't hurt me emotionally. And I would never go after Lamar. I would never go after Mark Andrews, right? Because it doesn't hurt me personally. Just because if it's cruel to you that they lost, that's a you problem. You don't need to go out and spread the cruelty. That is great. That is great from Mike Silver. Just because the sport can be cruel, and it doesn't have to be cruel. It's more cruel for them than it is for us. Doesn't mean that people need to be cruel back. Great quote. Thank you for sending that to me. Now, back to what Mike Greenberg just said. Sorry about the going down a rabbit hole there for a minute. Mike Greenberg says that Lamar Jackson was the best player on the field. I don't know that I can fully get behind that. Lamar Jackson was the most sensational person on the field. Lamar Jackson had some of the most incredible plays on the field. Lamar Jackson put together, especially in that, he had the best first quarter, and I think the first quarter, I can't remember when that first interception is, but that first drive was sensational. That second half was MVP, just MVP level sensational, that second half. But I got to be consistent. Bills fans have been in my mentions almost all season saying, well, if this is purely about stats, why did Lamar Jackson win MVP last year? And I said to them, the stats did matter. Josh Allen had 18 turnovers. Yeah, he may have had more yards. Yeah, is it 18 or 16? Somebody might need to check me on that. Sorry, I can't remember how many turnovers he had last year. But the stat turnovers spoiled his MVP bid last year. It did for Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't come close to putting up some of the sensational plays that Lamar Jackson did. You can maybe talk about Milano, who had a tip that prevented that 2-point conversion to Isaiah Likely. You could talk about, I can't remember the name of the player that punched the ball out for Mark Andrews. Should give him his love and his credit for doing that. But I think I may have blocked it out of my mind a little bit there. I can't say. And listen, I'm a coach. I coach basketball. I have some phenomenal players. But if you have two major turnovers like that, as much as you brought the team back and you overcame them, I can't say you're the best player on the field. Because being the best player means that you have to play cleaner football. Now, hey, maybe I could say that if Mark Andrews had caught that 2-point conversion and then Lamar fully overcame it. But the reality is they didn't fully overcome it. And yes, it might be because of that tipped pass from Milano to Likely as a 2-point conversion. Or maybe you could argue that the coaches shouldn't have called those plays or that Mark Andrews should have done it. But I can't call him the best with those 2 turnovers. Certainly the most sensational. If they were able to win, maybe I could go there. So personally, I can't go all the way there and say he was the best player on the field with those 2 turnovers. However, I can maybe get on board with what Dominique Foxworth had to say in response to Mike Greenberg.
I have to get in an argument of who's a better player, Matt Milano or Lamar Jackson. Like, I think the obvious answer is Lamar Jackson. And there's a difference between blaming somebody for the loss and giving them some responsibility for the things that they went wrong, that went wrong. So, like, Lamar Jackson can both be the best player in that game and be partially the father of this loss because those turnovers happened. We can't act like they didn't happen. I understand in the second half he played almost flawless football. But the problem is we've grown accustomed to seeing Lamar Jackson play actual flawless football. And this team needed that from him yesterday, Sunday, and it didn't happen. And I think what's hard for some people to watch in this game is in the second half, Lamar played played well enough to overcome the issues.
You feel robbed.
And this is why Greeny ends up at the point is pointing to Mark Andrews, and I see it. Understand that it's fair because Lamar did everything that we said that we're still saying he can't be great in the most important
yard drive, Dominic, should have been like the end of that chapter of his entire career.
And so, like, he's done it. It feels like he put those ghosts behind him, and we all remember in '95 when they took the monkey off of Steve Young's back. It felt like we were going to get that. And then we didn't. Through no fault of Lamar's, but I guess that's the point. It's
let me say this
the
too.
issues that Lamar had earlier.
We ain't giving the Bills enough right here too. The Bills still got time, and they can still move the ball down. There's they're tying the game. So let's not rubber stamp that we're going to the NFC Championship game.
We're not rubber stamping that. We're pointing to the fact that
he climbed.
Lamar, we had been saying Lamar can't do that. He did it.
I especially agree with the ending of what Dominique Foxworth said there. The toughest thing about this, and I see a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. Like, I don't think you're a loser if you think that Lamar Jackson was the best player on the field. And we can debate the turnovers, right? We can debate how much was on Lamar and how much wasn't. Of course, and we all respect Lamar because, of course, he put the fumble on himself, even though there was a bad snap, right? Listen, the truth is if there wasn't a bad snap, the RPO was there. Maybe I'll bring it in tomorrow. Dan Orlovsky did another film breakdown of it. And he was like, the RPO was there. He may have hit his head on the goalpost because it was right there. But because the snap was off, obviously Lamar couldn't get that off. And I'll also say this. Lamar did the exact same thing when there was a bad snap against the Bengals. He made something out of a disaster. And he tried to do it again. And so I'm happy to live with, all the times that Lamar does make something out of a disaster. And then in that play, he wasn't able to. I can live with that. The interception, I'll break that down a little bit more on a screen grab in just a minute. You could say, well, he and Bateman were on the same page. But Lamar said he should have looked off the safety. And so, but the fact of the matter is at the end of the day, there were those turnovers. So it's hard for me to say he was the best player. It's hard for me. If you disagree, that's fine. I'm not going to call you a loser. Hopefully you won't call me a loser, but I guess you can. It's your prerogative that I can't fully embrace it. But I'm right there with Foxworth at the end. Because for Foxworth, he says two things are true. Maybe he was the best player, but you have to put some of the blame on him because of the turnovers. Maybe I could get there. But the ending when he says, the toughest thing about this loss, it's for sure the toughest for me, is last week he slayed the first dragon that has been getting him, right? Which is the Pittsburgh Steelers had his number. And not only did he beat him in week 16, but then he beat him a couple weeks later in a playoff game. So he slays that dragon that's had him for a while, which is the Steelers. And then the other dragon is, well, can you win 2 playoff games in a row? Because whether he's been a wild card or a divisional, there's never been 2 in a row. Can you come from behind? And here he is without his 2 top wide receivers. Can you come from behind? Had the biggest deficit at halftime that the Ravens have had all season. He's blamed himself by being too antsy, and he comes in there calm. He comes in there cool. He comes in there collected. He's supposed to get the ball at the 35. Then there's a holding on special teams, so it pushes him all the way back to the 12. He's got to go 88 yards. And you can't use Derrick Henry much because then the clock is just rolling, so you can't rely on this other future Hall of Famer that you have in his legs in this moment. And he comes in, and he scrambles on third down for a first. And then he hits Tylan Wallace. He hits Mark Andrews. He just keeps going. And then with all the time in the world, and he's scrambling back there, he's got great protection. He throws basically this 25-yard dot to a diving Isaiah Likely. And then they call the 2-point conversion. He runs out to his right, gets out of the pocket, throws Chris Sims a perfectly fine pass in the numbers, and it's dropped. And so, just like Foxworth said he slayed the dragon, which is 2 dragons, really, which is winning 2 playoff games in a row. And you can do it coming from behind, and you can do it with your arms, and you can stay calm and cool and collected, just like all the greats. And he did it. But we can't officially say he did it because it was dropped and they lost. And it happened by the guy who's had Lamar's back the most since 2018. And that's the hardest thing, is that Lamar did it, but we have to act like he didn't do it because they lost. And so 20 years from now, when people look back and they look at stats and they look at quarterbacks and they look at legacies and they look at Super Bowls and they look at playoff records, even though we know it's not fair, but team record goes on the quarterback position. It's done. It's said every single time and every single day. It's always happened. And so he did it, but we have to act like it didn't happen because of the loss. So he's still going to have to slay that dragon going forward. It's exactly to Foxworth's point. He did it, but it doesn't get recorded. And that is the toughest part. Let's head over to Super Chats. Evan Rice, indeed, was at the game in Buffalo, truly cold. Bills fans were classy walking out of the stadium. Bills fans kept saying they escaped a likely loss to us. And there is a massive difference between people online, as we already know, and people face-to-face. Bobby had the same experience. He was up in Buffalo, was touring around, all that kind of stuff. And I got to say, Buffalo, because I tweeted that image of Lamar smiling big time after the game, giving so much love to Lamar. And then I put out the quote of Lamar saying that greatness respects greatness and that he wants Josh to go out and be successful and win an MVP or win a Super Bowl, whatever, but do something. And my mentions were filled with the classy side of Bills Mafia. Whereas the rest of the season, though, it was filled with the non-classy side. And I mean, there was some really, really classless stuff throughout the year. But it's unfortunate, but there is another side. So Edwin, good for pointing that out. Christian Watson, I'm more heartbroken over how we lost than the fact that we did. We always beat ourselves. We must make changes. Doing the same thing over and over equals, he doesn't finish the sentence, but I believe it's insanity. Or doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Robbie says, seeing Mark drop that end zone pass the same way it happened during the Steelers game a couple years ago hurt my soul. I have screen grabs on that. It's not exactly the same way, but he did. It's actually 3 times that they've tried that play with Mark when it didn't work. So here's Bobby in bed. And when I talked to him this morning, because I called him when I noticed he was starting to put stuff together, I was like, dude, go to bed. I got this. And he's like, no, I have to help in some way. He was keeping his voice as monotone as possible. It sounded like he had a sore throat. Bobby says, sorry I couldn't make this one, guys. Buffalo rocked me. Bedridden and hoping to bounce back for a busy one tomorrow. Hope you do too. But if you don't, we got your back. Just get well. Captain Hard says, I find it weird how Nick Wright trying to make Lamar turnovers worse than the Mark fumble and drop. I got to admit, I haven't even listened to Mark or Nick Wright. I don't know if I want to listen to him, but I'm sure I'll get around to it. He says, yes, Lamar turned it over, but it was on Mark. I'm sorry. I agree. I agree. While I can't call him the best player on the football field, I can't get myself quite there yet. I agree. He overcame it. Like I said, it's the hardest part. Oh, Mark, 2 drops, 1 in the end zone for the game tying points. And then the fumble. Oh, To me, it's like you have an order, right? It's, but if we want to just take it out of an order of people, it's turnovers. It's turnovers. It's turnovers. You can't turn the ball over. Adit says Mark's girlfriend had to turn off comments on social media. Like, that stuff I don't get. Why? It's the same thing when people go after Eric DaCosta's wife online. Like, what does it say about you that you're hurt this badly over football? How can you be that hurt that you go that you go to the family members? Makes no sense to me. Nikki, I think we need a new perspective for offensive coordinator, somewhere between Monken and Roman. Thanks, Bobby and Sarah. Going into football rehab. Well, hopefully we can help you out with that a little bit around here. Asmodeus says, I don't condone personal attacks like that. I do have to temper my expectations moving forward. I genuinely believe the Super Bowl was imminent. Moving forward, I'm watching without expectations. I think that catches us up on Super Chats. All right. One thing on the safety turnover. So Warren Sharp put out a video of this, but he paused it, and this is the main part. So going back to that interception, Warren Sharp, he says, here's Lamar's interception. You can easily see the issue. Bateman beats his man off the line. Lamar identifies it and throws it. So you can see right here, Lamar's already about to launch the ball, right? And we can see here that Bateman clearly has his man beat. Brian Baldinger also did a video on this, and he pointed out that Lamar is throwing the ball for one route, anticipating, right? And Bateman runs a different route. Bateman does an out-breaking route. Lamar's throwing it like he's going deep. Now, and then he goes on to say, as soon as it's out, Bateman plants and breaks outside. Now, I will say this. While there's clearly a miscommunication, Lamar doesn't absolve himself, and I hear him on this. A lot of people online are saying he didn't see the safety. He saw the safety. In the post-game presser, he's mad at himself for the BS interception, as he called it, because he said he didn't hold the safety. Meaning he should have put his eyes elsewhere to hold the safety for a split second longer. Now, if he had done that, and Bateman still ran a different route than Lamar was expecting, then there would have been no interception, right? Even if there was a miscommunication, then it would have just been an incompletion. I don't know, maybe he still would have gotten there. But I'll say this, because of the miscommunication, I still don't, it still could have been an interception. It would have taken Bateman to play a little defense or win a 50-50 ball, because the safety was going to be there. He was going to be there. And so Lamar is holding himself accountable for not holding the safety. And if he did that, maybe there wouldn't have been an interception. Or if Bateman had run the route that Lamar was expecting, there may have not been an interception. So, I mean, it's all of it. I mean, this is all getting into the details of it all. But they clearly were not on the same page. Clearly. Now, there's a bigger point to be made here. With the Ravens and their Achilles heel in all of, there's obviously a psychological component, right, of why the Ravens continually play their worst football game, especially on offense, their worst football game in the playoffs. It's not like you're just getting beat, like you're just playing your worst game. So there's that psychological component of it that I don't have answers for here on January 21st. But if we want to talk about the football side of it, there is easily a trend that is slapping us in the face that needs to end. We just saw a super chatter say that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. He says a change needs to be made. Here's the change. Turnover differential. That's it. The cleanest football teams advance. Cole Jackson and Dev Panchwa pointed this out really well yesterday on Twitter. It's the clearest day, and Munkin pointed this out, but he pointed out against the Steelers. And the Ravens fixed it against the Steelers. But the bigger deal is you've got to fix this against all the best teams. You could have turnovers against bad teams because you can overcome it against bad teams. Bad teams can't take advantage of the turnovers like good teams can. The Ravens have they've had the most talented roster in the AFC, probably in all of football, 2 years in a row. It doesn't matter if you can't win the turnover differential, the turnover margin. Cole has it broken down. And I'm not just talking about turnovers on offense. We're talking about takeaways on defense. You have to win the margin. In 2018, here's the turnovers and takeaways for each playoff year. 2018, 3 turnovers, 1 takeaway. That's a -2. Not going to cut it. 2019, 3 turnovers, 0 takeaways, -3. Not going to cut it. 2020, 1 turnover, 0 takeaways, -1. Not going to cut it. 2022, 2 turnovers, 1 takeaway, -1. Not going to cut it. 2023, 3 turnovers, 0 takeaways, -3. And then 2024, 3 turnovers, 6 takeaways. Or excuse me, 0 takeaways, -3. So Cole summarizes it by saying, in 6 playoff losses, that's a -13 turnover differential. The offense has turned the ball over and the defense hasn't taken the ball away. That's the reason for the lack of playoff success. Yes, absolutely. Is it because you're in bigger games that you take more risks? That you think you need to have to do more? And I'm not just talking about Lamar, although Lamar's certainly a part of it. Do you think that you need to suddenly be a hero or Superman, or you forget about the details? Whatever the reason is, this is the thing that needs to change. And we can talk about the details too. Or for sure in that AFC Championship game, the coaches had a bad game plan. But I don't think there was a bad game plan this round, and I don't know that there was a bad game plan every single season or every single postseason. If you don't want to go insane, figure out the turnover margin. Never once were they even just an even turnover. I'll take 0 in the margins. I'll take that because that's how talented Lamar Jackson and this Ravens team is. Keep it at 0, you win. Get a +1, a +2, a +3, you will get a BTA score at the end. That's it. That's it. Take care of the football on offense and make a play on defense. I know everybody, when a loss like this hurts as much as it does, you want to tear it all down. The fact of the matter is the vast majority of this talented team that was the most talented in the AFC, in Mike Greenberg's words, and I don't disagree with him, you don't need to tear it all down. You just got to take care of the football. That's it. And then all these other little things about, did Derrick Henry get, the ball here? Why Justice Hill there? Why? All of that can all be discussed for sure. And that's what we definitely do on at least an hour long program that covers only the Ravens. We dig into those details, but all those details melt away if you take care of the football. If you want to compare it to what's happening with other teams, or how about just the Ravens themselves? Russell Street Report was inspired by Dev Panchwal, who put up a tweet about this, similar to Cole's, but maybe not as detailed. So Russell Street Report looked into it more, looking into specifically the defensive side of forcing turnovers. In the Ravens 2012 run all the way to the Super Bowl, the defense, and I remember this defense that was under Dean Pease too, Big time bend but don't break. Oh, they gave up yards. I covered that whole year. Oh, they gave up yards. But did they know how to come up in big moments and come up with big plays? That 2012 run, they forced 10 turnovers in 4 games. That's more than averaging 2 turnovers per game. 10 turnovers in 4 games. How about Kansas City during their back-to-back Super Bowl wins? 11 turnovers in 7 games. Not even close to as good as 10 and 4. But 11 and 7, pretty good. Just under 2 per game. In Lamar Jackson's career, Ravens have forced 2 turnovers in 8 games. As Russell Street Report summarizes, gotta start taking it away and protecting it. It's staring us in the eyes, guys. Think about it. AFC Championship game. And I'm not absolving the coaches and the lack of running in that. I thought it was bad. I thought the Ravens were outcoached. That being said, Ravens were on the verge of coming back. Punch out Flowers at the goal line. And Marlon Humphrey was a guy who was doing it this year. He led all cornerbacks in all of NFL with 6 interceptions. He was number 3 overall. The number 1 safety had 8 interceptions. I think the second was 7. And then there's Humphrey. We all remember him for sure taunting, even though he tried to get away with it. Oh, Marlo. He was trying not to get fined, but oh boy, did he get fined. But he was first in the league among cornerbacks with those interceptions. None in the postseason. Roquan Smith loves to hit people. Punch that ball out. Justin Madubuike. Travis Jones. You big dudes. Get that ball out. Get it loose. Rightfully, we're dissecting these turnovers by Lamar and Mark Andrews, but at the same time, let's create some turnovers. Let's create some. All right. Let me go get a couple more super chats before we move on to this topic of comp picks. Let's see. Finish with Osmodeus. That takes us to 77 figures. Stacking MVPs are critical when teammates wet the bed. Olu says, I needed this, Sarah. We are the better team. LJ8 is human, but in the second half, he was balling. Mark is a top 5 tight end. We will be back as long as LJ is healthy. Absolutely. Let's get in this draft and free agents. Let's get it in this draft and in free agency and get back stronger. #Vault. I mean, for real, you have the guys. You've had them 2 years in a row. Take care of the football and don't get out coached. Take care of the football and don't get out coached. Just burn that into their minds. Burn it into your minds. You're so talented. You don't need to push it and take risks. You don't need to get reckless. You don't need to get reckless. You take risks if you're down with 2 minutes left and you're down by who knows how much, more than a field goal. Then you can start taking those risks. But you're so talented, you don't need to take crazy risks early in the game. Doesn't need to happen. Doesn't need to happen. All right. Now, let's look at these comp picks, shall we? Make this bigger screen so you guys can see this. So Nick Cordy over at Over the Cap, I mean, he's like always 90, 98, 99% correct in his compensatory pick projections. We know there's a formula. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it includes free agents lost, free agents you signed, unrestricted free agents you've signed, the contracts to which they are signed, and also playing time. I don't know if like other success like Pro Bowls or anything like that are part of that formula, but Nick knows the formula and he's been predicting it. And he predicts that the Ravens will get 4 compensatory picks in the draft. Now, it starts with a pretty good one. They're going to get a 4th rounder for losing Patrick Queen to the Steelers. They're going to get a 5th round pick for Jadeveon Clowney. They will get another 5th round pick for losing Geno Stone to the Bengals. And then they'll get a 6th round pick for losing Kevin Zeitler. The Ravens will be picking number 27 overall, as they were knocked out in the divisional round. So that brings their total to 11 draft picks come April. This is good news. And it's good news for a few reasons. Number one, having another 4th round pick, that's massive. 2 more 5th rounds, that's big. The more swings you can get, the better. But even more than that, this allows Eric DeCosta to move around the board. It allows him to trade. He can trade up, but on top of that, he also he uses these types of things for in-season trades for actual players, all that kind of stuff. This allows him to feel more at ease to do those types of things. And by the way, these guys that were lost, I want to ask you guys, on this list, are there any guys that you were like, Eric DeCosta should have re-signed? Kevin Zeitler would be one for me. I really wanted at the time Jadeveon Clowney to be back. The Ravens ended up number 2 in the league with sacks. I feel like the Ravens were fine with that as much as I would have liked him to come back. Now, Geno Stone, that hurt in the beginning of the season, obviously, but then Ardarius Washington stepped up. They benched Marcus Williams, and they cut Eddie Jackson. Geno Stone would have been nice, but I don't think at the time I was saying, yeah, they got to keep Geno Stone. Not with what they were paying Marcus Williams and Derek Hamilton already being an all-pro. Patrick Queen, there was no way they were going to pay Patrick Queen. And they definitely went through some growing pains, both with Patrick Queen and Geno Stone being gone, but I think by the end of the season, they overcame it. That Kevin Zeitler one is the one that I feel like the Ravens really could have. I don't think he would have cost too much. I think it was one of those where they were trying to cut him. The old saying of like, you want to move on from them before they start to fall off. And Kevin Zeitler did not fall off. And the Ravens could have used him in guard play. Again, though, by the time they got to the playoffs, that certainly, I don't think any of these losses hurt the Ravens by the time they got to the playoffs. We just talked about that. So anyway, the Ravens will end up with another 4th, 2 5ths, a 6th, and they will now have 11 draft picks. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the list. I'm going to make this a bit bigger too for myself over on my end. Here are the 17 Ravens who will be unrestricted free agents come March 12th. That is when free agency officially begins, March 12th. That'll also mark the anniversary of when Bobby and I started doing live streams, lunch day live streams, instead of recorded 30-minute episodes. And they were only supposed to be an hour lunch long, but we all know they got up to 2 hours. And here I am solo up to 54 minutes already, and still got some content to get to here. But here's the list of 17 players. And I've put next to them either yellow, green, or red arrows for some of them, trying to predict who I think will be coming back. So starting the list, we got Ronnie Stanley, Patrick McCary, Tre'Davious White, Patrick Ricard, Nelson Aguilar, Malik Harrison, Josh Jones, Brent Urban, quarterback Josh Johnson, returner receiver Steve Sims Jr., Deontay Hardy, another wide receiver and returner, Chris Board, Ben Cleveland, Brandon Stevens, Christian Welch, linebacker but big-time special teams, Trayvon Mullen, Tylan Wallace, and then restricted free agents are Darius Washington and Christian Matthew, and then the ERFA, Owen Wright. Okay. Now, some of the bigger names here. Let's talk about some of these bigger names. Ronnie Stanley, Patrick McCary. Let's start with these two offensive linemen. I put yellows by their names. If I were Eric DeCosta, seeing that Ronnie Stanley was probably the Ravens' comeback player of the year, left tackles do not grow on trees. If he were to leave, you'd probably move Roger Rosengarten over to the left side, which he started and he didn't move over there until he had a lefty quarterback, and so they wanted to move him to the right side so he could protect his blind side. Roger Rosengarten surely is capable of going back. Roger Rosengarten just absolutely couldn't ask for much more in his rookie year. So they could move him over there, or they could offer Ronnie Stanley a modest contract and see if he wants to go out and test it. I would make him an offer that I would feel comfortable with. I don't want to mess around with Lamar Jackson and his safety back there. If you bring back Ronnie and you already have Roger and keep them in the second year, Ronnie in his second year on the right-hand side, those are solid bookends. And I feel comfortable with Lamar Jackson back there. Now, I still would feel good about drafting another tackle, given Ronnie Stanley's history with injuries. But he overcame them this year, and he played well. He might be, if he does end up hitting the market, he's probably going to be one of the top 10 ranked free agents going into free agency. Now, Ronnie may want to go and test the market. He put on a great year of tape, a great year. And he might go out and be able to get paid really well. But if I were the Ravens, I would definitely make him an offer before March 12th to see if you can retain him. And then if he goes out and gets a better deal, then that might happen. So that's why I put him in yellow. I would make that offer. Patrick McCary, I think I would also make him an offer. But I feel like I saw him as a starting left tackle. I like him better as a super sub. So I'm not paying him a ton. His average salary on his last contract was $5.1 million. I would give less. Ronnie Stanley's was $7.5 million. I would offer less to Patrick McCary. Now, again, he may want to go out and test the market, or the Ravens could be like, you know what? This was fun. So that's why, again, I put him in yellow. Patrick Ricard, I put him in green. I think he's going to be re-signed. I think he spoke with the media during his locker room cleanout yesterday. He told reporters, here it is from Jamison Hensley. He made it clear that he wants to return to the Ravens and, quote, I want to retire here. I think it makes all the sense in the world to bring back Patrick Ricard. Most teams don't even use fullbacks, especially not in the way the Ravens do. You got Derrick Henry under contract again. Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, all going to return. Bring back the dude who clears the way. Bring back this 300-pound fullback that clears the way. He wants to be here. It makes sense for him to come back. He's still playing at a high level. I think he will indeed be back. Nelson Aguilar, I don't know that they'll re-sign him. Malik Harrison, I should have put a yellow or maybe even a green next to him. He's kind of one of those dudes that doesn't get a lot of fanfare, doesn't make a lot of noise. He's not like this sack artist, but he sets the edge. He brings a lot of physicality. So at a very, very inexpensive deal, I could see him returning. So I wish I put a yellow next to him. Josh Jones, tackle. I don't see him returning. Brent Urban, he's 33, might be 34 by the time the season rolls back around. I could see him being like a training camp signing, kind of see where you're at. He's always just a solid dude, so I put him at yellow. Josh Johnson, I would like to upgrade at backup. Again, Lamar has finished several seasons in a row now, but I would like to upgrade there. Josh Johnson will be probably 39 by the time the season rolls around. Steve Sims Jr., he could return, but I don't see that. Deontay Hardy, Chris Board, and Christian Welch. We'll talk about both of them, both special teams guys. I can maybe see them coming back again more towards training camp. These aren't high priority free agents, right? But I could see them coming back and playing a special teams role. Both of them good there. And then just maybe some depth there at inside linebacker. Ben Cleveland, he gone. He gone. We all know he and John Harbaugh have not seen eye to eye. Ben Cleveland's going to get signed somewhere. And I can see him starting somewhere. I'm sure Ben is like, peace out. I want to go and get a chance to start. I'm never going to get a chance under John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is like, yeah, you're not going to get a chance under me. Ben You and your squirrel-eating ways. I've always liked you, Ben. And listen, I was pulling for you. Daniel Fa'alele played a lot better than I ever thought he could. He ended up, my goodness, being a Pro Bowl alternate, even got some All-Pro votes. You certainly did. Daniel Fa'alele did way better than I ever had dreamed of, because I wasn't even dreaming it at all. But he gone. Love you. Hope you have a great NFL career. Hope you get a chance to start somewhere. Brandon Stevens, in my book, he gone. It's just too much of a liability. You guys saw it. Right away on the very first drive from the Bills and Josh Allen, they were targeting this guy. I love him as a human being. He's a great guy. He's more successful than you could ever ask from a guy who's transitioning from running back. The Ravens gave him ample opportunity to figure out that last split second, because he's in the hip pocket, but he could not finish. In my view, he gone. Already talked about Christian Welch, Trayvon Mullen. I can maybe see him coming back, but, one of those, again, training camp signings, and then maybe a practice squad guy. Tylan Wallace, I think this one will be interesting. Listen, every time, Tylan is not the obviously biggest imposing threat, not the most imposing physical force. But man, would I love to bring him back as like a fifth wide receiver. I mean, every single time this man gets an opportunity, he seems to come through. Whether it's a punt return for a touchdown, like he did against the Rams, or when he had Lamar's back when Bateman and Zay were down, and Lamar's pushing the pocket out to the right, running out, and then he throws it to Tylan in the fourth quarter when they have to get down there. Tylan comes up big. I like Tylan Wallace. I put a green there. I don't know if he's actually going to come back. Maybe he's going to want to go test the market. Are you guys on the same page with me? Do you guys love Tylan? I like Tylan. Yeah. Well, Mike has him as wide receiver 3. I'm with Evan. Let Nelly go. Let me look at some of these things. Tylan 3, Tez 4. Prefer Tylan more number 4. Can I get another 3 that would be better insurance? And I mean insurance in the like a Deontay Johnson, but a guy that is actually going to play and isn't putting up fits. So I don't know if I put Tylan as all the way as a wide receiver number 3, but I can go with 4. And I do like Nelly, but I don't think he'll be back. Some people got Walker as number 3. I don't know if he's going to be ready for that, but maybe he'll grow. Maybe we'll grow. I like how Eileen spelled Thailand as in like the country, Thailand. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Pick up one more guy. Pick up one more guy and put Tylan as number 4. And maybe Tez can beat Tylan as number 4. But I like Tylan and Tez as like competing for number 4. I'd like to bring in one more guy as depth, again, because if Bateman or Zay were to go down earlier, you know what I mean? I don't know that I love Tylan as number 2 in that case. You know what I mean? So, okay. But we're mostly on the same page here, guys. We're all in agreement that it's Tylan over Nelson Aguilar. Arias Washington. So he's for sure going to be back as a restricted free agent. So I'm just wondering at this point, though, do you give him a Rashad Bateman type deal, or that is definitely, fair, like inexpensive, but you want to keep him around? I wonder, even as well as he's played, if he can even get a huge contract. He's not going to hit the open market this year, but you go ahead and pay him and try to lock him in for 3 years, right? The way they kind of did with Bateman at a very modest deal. I kind of feel like he's earned it, but you do have to keep in mind he does have an injury history, and that could pop back up because the dude is 5'8" and like $180, and he throws his body into people like he's Kyle Hamilton's size. Like he's Roquan Smith. Like he plays with the heart. He plays like he has the body of Roquan Smith. You know what I mean? Just totally unafraid, looking for smoke everywhere on that field. And hits people. And sometimes he comes in and he hits people hard, and then he just kind of bounces off, or he'll punch something, try to punch the ball out. And if he had the force of Roquan, it would have popped out. But I love him. I love him. So either way, he's going to be here. I just wonder, do you give him a 3-year deal now, or do you like watch another year of him playing at this level and then offer him like a modest 3-year deal? Either way, he's going to be back in 2025. I don't know, man. He's right up there with the guys I love the most on this team. And then another restricted free agent in ERFA, already named them. So that's kind of my predictions in yellow, green, and red of what will happen with these 17. But guys, bigger point here. Look at this list. You can maybe say Ronnie Stanley or Patrick Ricard. Out of those two guys, if the Ravens lost all of them, aren't they already starting with the Super Bowl roster? See, like every single one of those guys is lost. You're going to have to replace a left tackle. That's massive. And I just can't even put Patrick Ricard there because I feel that confident that Ricard's coming back. He said he wants to retire Raven. Fullbacks are not expensive. He's coming back. So say like you lost all 16 other players. Are you not already starting with the Super Bowl caliber roster? Nate says you're starting with the wild card winning roster. Okay, fair enough. I think it's Super Bowl caliber. You got to stop turning the ball over. You got to get some takeaways. But the beautiful thing is now you've got 11 draft picks. I don't think the Ravens are going to make it. Just let me just put this out there. Do not get your hopes up for a massive free agent splash. I just don't think it's coming. Maybe some modest ones. Maybe a left guard. Can you get me a left guard? Can you give me that? I would like one. But that's not. But who calls a left guard a free agent splash? Right. But that's the beauty. It's the gut punch, but it's also the beauty of this. It's a gut punch because you had a good enough roster to win the Super Bowl, and maybe you could have competed twice in a row, but the foundation is so there, and it's only going to get better through the draft and a couple of veteran free agents. But get me some pass rushers in that draft. Get me some more offensive linemen in that draft. Protect Lamar. Get some depth elsewhere. But my goodness, are they starting from a great spot? KVN is not an unrestricted free agent. He will be back as long as he doesn't retire. I'm seeing you in the chats asking these questions. 7 figure saying, well, Sarah, no splash, then no chip. I disagree. Turnovers, then no chip. But yeah, I mean, if your definition of the splash is the same as me, which is would be like a T. Higgins or like what did somebody say the other day in the super chat? T. Higgins or Tyreek Hill. It's not happening. They are moving forward with Zay Flowers and Bateman as their top two receivers. And now they're building, maybe Tylen comes back. You've got Tez Walker. If they get a wide receiver, it's going to be a number 3 type or less. Yeah, I mean, you've got KVN coming back. Odafe Owe is going to be coming back. I mean, it's going to essentially be, I mean, the foundation is set. The foundation is set. Bateman doesn't need an extension. He was just extended. He's got 2 more years. He's got 2 more years. People are saying he needs to be extended. No. What you're doing is you're going into the draft for depth or maybe a guy, with your first rounder. It's like, well, can he compete for a starting spot somewhere? But it's quite the foundation. I'll say that. A little bit more from the locker room clean out. Ronnie Stanley, who we're talking about here. pending free agent. He said he hasn't thought about his future. He's still processing the loss. So he's going to have to switch gears very soon here. And I promise you, his agent has thought about his future. And I'm guessing he and the Ravens may have already touched base maybe a little bit. Patrick McCary, he also said he hasn't thought about his future. So those are pretty, which I get from them, right? Like they're in their mind, they're like, we're going to beat the Bills and we're going to go see KC, right? So I hope that they hadn't thought about it much. But that will change, and we will get more information on the Ravens' plans this offseason when John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta speak tomorrow at 11. So once again, if you missed off the top, I said we're going to be a little bit late tomorrow. That press conference, I'm assuming, will go close to noon. Bobby and I will be pulling in quotes and transcripts, audio as quickly as we can, and try to be here as quickly after that as possible. Same thing we do after games. Let's see what else we got here. Just revisiting this one more time and just to bring up some historic perspective to this, Bo Smoka tweeted, it was a little surprising that Mark Andrews didn't talk to the media last night or today. Very unlike him. And then Bo says, I remember speaking with both Lee Evans in the locker room and Billy Cundiff at the podium immediately after the 2011 loss. And both also spoke at the locker room cleanout the next day. And Lamar Jackson, who had 2 turnovers, also spoke and took responsibility. So listen, we get it. I'm not going to trash him as a human. I understand that Mark Andrews was devastated. I bet Lee Evans was devastated, and I bet Billy Cundiff was devastated, and they probably were even more devastated when they got their pink slips. I don't think they actually get pink slips, but I mean figuratively. And they showed up. I've stayed consistent for decades on this. I feel like you got to show up in losses and in wins when you've had a good game, when you've had a bad game. I understand it. I get it. I'm not saying it would be easy, but I think Mark Andrews should have spoken either Sunday night or Monday. Adarius Washington, I'm trying to figure out what to do with myself now. Definitely in a daze right now. I'm telling you, man, I know these guys don't even want to leave their house, some of them right now. So he's still in a daze. Tylan Wallace, year 4, unrestricted free agent. He says, I know the season didn't end how we wanted it to, but I just got to say I got a lot of love for this team. Just want to say I appreciate everyone who supported us and helped us get this far. Excited to see what the future holds. Unrestricted free agent, all love. So we don't know if that's a goodbye or if he's returning, because he is excited to see what the future holds. Really like that guy. Really like that guy. Nate Wiggins at the locker room cleanout said at Clemson, his weight was around 160 pounds. This last year. How much this guy put on? This year he was closer to 176 or 178. So 16 to 18 pounds heavier. And he was as fast as can be. The goal this offseason is continuing to get stronger. Boy, oh boy, did Eric DeCosta nail the first 2 picks of last year's draft. Nate Wiggins, excellent. Excellent is the word I give it for his rookie year. Roger Rosengarten, what's right under excellent? Took him a little bit of time. Boy, did he get, that Raiders game. Woo-wee! Welcome to the NFL moment. But he overcame. So whatever is underneath excellent. But 2 foundational pieces going forward at premium spots. When you use high draft picks at the tackle position, corner position, pass rusher position, and did I say quarterback? Corner, quarter, tackle, and pass rusher. Those are premium spots that cost a pretty penny against the cap. So you want to draft well. Eric DeCosta just nailed it. Nailed it. Nate Wiggins, Roger Rosengarten, staples for the next few years. And he's got to do it again. Ryan Clark with a message to Mark Andrews, which I fully support. Keep your head up, Mark Andrews, Ryan says. You've made a ton of plays throughout your career that have made the Ravens who they are today. You had a great year. We all have a few that we wish we could have back. You're an absolute baller. Prayer emoji. I agree. Catch it next time. Show up to the press conference next time. But keep your head up. If you keep your head up, I'm sure that can happen. Okay, a super cheddar had brought this up. Okay, about the 2-point conversion. And he said that Mark Andrews dropped it last time against the Steelers. Not exactly the same way, but Zach at New Era Zach, great Twitter follower. If you guys don't know him already, he's fun. He says, "I'm telling you all, this is the only play that comes to mind when it's time for a 2-point conversion for Harbs." So you can go back to that Steelers game, 2-point conversion, Ravens 19, Steelers 20, 12 seconds left. Lamar slightly overthrows it, slightly. Bounces off the fingertips of Mark Andrews. 2-point conversion, same thing. Rolling out to his right, throwing it to his right. He's open, but they don't connect. How about this one against the Green Bay Packers? 42 seconds left. Ravens down by 1, 30-31. That one was just a debacle. He wasn't ever even open. That was just bad. Bad. And then we know what happened on Sunday. So this whole thing with Mark Andrews, the 2-point conversion rolling out to the right, it's failed 3 times now. And each time it failed in a different way. But it's failed 3 times. Either we got to get a different player to run it, or you got to ban it. Because results are results. Look at that. Look at that. 3 different times. 2-point conversions. 3 different times. You blew it. Now, to me, they ran. I see Cameron saying that they say use likely instead, which they did on the first on the previous 2-point conversion. It's essentially the same play, but in the other direction, and he got tipped by Milano. So that's fine. You can try it maybe to the right with likely, but maybe we should retire this for a minute. Maybe we should retire this for a minute. Look at it 3 different times. Pro Football Talk pointed this out with an article said the NFL won't instruct officials to throw flags for pulling runners. It's by Mike Florio. So what is he talking about? We said on Sunday, officials in the Ravens-Bills game didn't throw a flag on Buffalo guard Osiris Torrance for pulling running back James Cook into the end zone. Next Sunday, they won't be throwing a flag when it happens again. Per a source with knowledge of the situation, the NFL will not be instructing officials to call it when it happens in either of the 2 conference championship games. As the source explained it, instructing them to call it now would represent too much of a change from the enforcement of the rules to date in the 2024 season. Oops. However, the issue will be addressed in the offseason as it should be. The choices are simple. Enforce the rule against pulling a runner as written, or remove that rule from the rule book. The message for now is clear to the 4 remaining teams. Pull them if you got them. That's weird. It's in the rule book. Just alert the teams going into the conference championships. We're not doing this. It's against the rules. I don't know what we're doing here. All right. I think that's all the content I got here today, guys. Only an hour 20. We didn't go to 2 hours. Okay, I got a couple more super chats, and then we will end this. Hadley J. Drums. He says the Ravens defense isn't taught to take the ball away. What? What? I'm going to need you to back that up. The Ravens defense isn't taught to take the ball away? I don't know about that. Zay Flowers said to Kyle Hamilton, he told him they only want to crash out. They don't care to take the ball away. Okay, well, he did trying to back it up there. Can you send me that quote? I do remember Kyle Hamilton saying at one point when things were going bad and I mean bad in the beginning of the season when they were blowing plays everywhere and nobody was doing their assignment, they went back to basics way back then and said, don't try to be Superman. Like, we're just trying to fix this right now. But then Kyle Hamilton later said, yeah, we did that for like a minute. But now that we have our assignments down, it's kind of like you give a baby milk before you give them a steak, which is where the team was at. But a blanket statement that the Ravens defense isn't taught to take away the ball, that's just not true. Every defense wants to take away the ball. Now, was there a period of time where they were bad, as in 32 worst pass defense in the league for 10 weeks? Yes. Were they blowing coverages, trying to be Superman, all that kind of stuff? Yes. So they had to go back to basics. But that was not the case as they went into the playoffs. Okay. But now I get where you're coming from, Hadley. Asmodeus. What's key is, do we need to replace Monken? That's going to be that's going to be massive. Player-wise, I know there's a lot of people that are already ready to move on from Tad Monken. I am not one of those people. I'm not even close to one of those people. You are like number one in almost all offensive categories. And the way he's empowered Lamar and has given Lamar the tools to do what he's always was capable of. Offensive coordinators can get in Lamar Jackson's way. Believe you me. We saw it with Greg Roman. There are other offensive coordinators that could get in his way. Lamar will be great. But there was like 2019 MVP Lamar, 2023 MVP Lamar, and 2024 MVP Lamar. And we don't want to take any way of that from Lamar himself because he's the one out there doing it. But coordinators can be a stumbling block for sure. For sure. And on top of it, for the most part, Todd Monken, I feel like, has good adjustments and is really good at building off of the plays he's put in. You're number one in almost all categories on offense, red zone, overall yards, scoring, all of it. And Lamar clearly likes him. The way he laughs and jokes that we did not see with Roman. Now, does that mean that nobody else could do the job? No. I'm just saying, Lamar said it a lot too. Lamar said, in year 2, I'm way more comfortable in this offense. So when you have the roster that the Ravens are already starting with, and then you're going to have to start all over with a brand new offense, Lamar's talked about it. It takes a minute. And I mean, they transitioned quickly. They got all the way to the AFC Championship game. But Lamar was clearly more comfortable in year 2, which is why we had a historic year. More than 4,000 passing and more than 900 rushing. Four interceptions all year. 40-plus touchdowns. That's another level. And so, yeah, Lamar can still be sensational, but his comfort level was night and day. To make him start all over again, that's putting a lot on Lamar. It's putting a lot on Lamar. And maybe somebody like T. Martin could do it, or maybe they bring in somebody else, and we may not have a choice. I'll tell you this, he wouldn't get fired. So this is out of all of our control. If he's not hired as a head coach, he's going to be the offensive coordinator again, and I would celebrate that. If he's not, then you got to move forward and you got to do what you got to do. Because nobody's looking backwards. Evan, when I look at our roster from last year to this year and from this year to next, what stings is that this team was built and had the talent to go on a dynasty run. That changes after next year. It's so true. AFC Championship game. They played terribly. And the same thing again against the Bills. That does sting. But it is what it is. And so now all you can do is stop with the turnovers, don't get out coached, and run it back. And I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm going to enjoy it. But I'm with you, Evan. Dreams. Game-wrecking edge is what we need next season. I would love that. I would not mind. I mean, this is me off the top of my head. I need to look. I haven't even barely thought about the draft whatsoever. But I wouldn't hate it if their 27th pick was an edge rusher. If Ronnie leaves, I also wouldn't hate if it was a tackle. Yeah. Yeah, I feel good about showing up. He says, are you crazy? Keep all coaches. Get a stronger O-line. Yes, indeed. And a few more playmakers on defense. Yes, playmakers that will take the ball away. Okay? We will be fine, guys. Please chill out, Olu says. I don't know what everybody's saying. I don't know what people are saying. That's making him call for people not to, or for people to chill out. I don't know what people are saying, but it is what it is. All right, guys, thanks for your patience in the 1 o'clock start today. A little crazy, as we already explained. Gonna send much love to Bobby. Hope he recovers. I know he wants to be back for tomorrow with Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh speaking. I know he wants to be back. So wish him the best in his recovery. Drink a lot of fluids. Get some OJ chicken noodle soup. If I was in Baltimore, I would bring that to you, Bobby. Columbus is a little too far away. Somebody else want to pick up that duties? You know, we already know he doesn't have a girlfriend in his life right now. So you know that's not happening. He lives alone. Somebody go stop by. Somebody shoot Bobby a DM and say, hey, let me bring you some chicken noodle soup. Something like that. But if you're not back better by tomorrow, Bobby, you don't need to be back. We got this. So we wish him well. I look forward to this press conference tomorrow. Should be great. And I hope you guys will join me as we break it all down tomorrow for our lunch-ish. Maybe have a late lunch. Maybe we'll see you around 12:30, 12:45, something like that. But I will be here. We will talk about it and see what the goals are heading into the offseason. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate that you guys are all still here with us in the wake of this loss. Because you know what? Life moves on. Life moves forward. Appreciate all you guys. See you here tomorrow in about 23 hours, 22 and a half hours, something like that. Have a great day.